Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Infinity Workforce Solutions Fast Forward webinar series. My name is Steve Kessler, and I'm going to host the program today. We're very excited to have you all join us. I think today is a topic that is always on the minds of people involved in pupil transportation. And we're going to talk today about best practices for recruiting and retaining school bus drivers. I was telling our guest just a few minutes ago, I've been with this company, Infinity, for coming up on 21 years in May, and I don't recall a time that we didn't hear from our school districts about their need for school bus drivers. It seems to be an issue that continues and goes on and on. And we've got, I think, an expert that's going to help us at least with some ideas on best practices on how to be successful in making sure we have the right bus drivers for our schools. A couple of housekeeping things before I introduce our guest. Everybody that's logged in this morning is muted, so we can't hear you. If you would like to communicate with us, there's a chat box there that you have access to, and you can type in your comments or questions. There's also a Q&A box in the tray, and you can use that if you wish to pose a question. And we'll see those here on our side, and then we'll be able to respond to those questions. And we'll probably take those towards the end of the program. So why don't you all jump on the chat and just tell us who you are and who you're with and where you are, so we have some idea who's out there. And while you all are doing that, I'm going to introduce our guest. And we're very fortunate to have Craig Beaver join us this morning. Craig currently serves as the administrator for transportation at the Beaverton School District in Beaverton, Oregon. Craig has over 40 years of experience in both private and public transportation sectors. Craig oversees Oregon's largest district-owned school bus fleet. His team comprises over 300 employees and 320 buses, transporting 25,000 students daily and covering over 3 million miles annually. So it's a very large district with lots of buses. In 2024, Craig was honored as the Transportation Director of the Year by School Transportation News. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Under his leadership, Beaverton became the first school district in Oregon to introduce electric school buses in 2021. Currently, the district operates 45 electric buses on daily routes and has installed 70 level 2 and level 3 DC fast chargers. In 2024, the district received a $20 million grant from the EPA Clean School Bus Program to replace 50 diesel buses with electric ones, aiming to have 90 electric buses in service by January of 2026. The remaining fleet is powered by propane and diesel, utilizing renewable diesel, which is R99, or renewable propane. So having said that, Craig, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Steve. That's quite an introduction. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm more than happy to talk about this, and hopefully today we've tried some unique things here at Beaverton over the past 10 years and in my prior life as well. And I'll give you some examples, and hopefully it'll spur some ideas for you to use as well. Again, Steve's pretty detailed as far as my current employment. Just real quick, a little bit earlier before that, after I graduated from college, I went to work for a company called Roadway Express, very large trucking company. I spent 17 years there as a supervisor, a terminal manager, and industrial engineer. And then from there, I went to a smaller school district, Grossmont Union High School District in San Diego, California, about 20,000 kids. And I spent 15 years there. And then I came up here for the past 10. So had always been in transportation, and hiring has always been the number one thing in the last 40 years. So Today we'll talk about best practices. So with that, we'll kick off a little bit here. Let me go forward. And there's us again. There's Steve and I. And this this quote is something that I remembered. And I preach to everybody that works for me, and I have since the mid 80s. When you think you have enough drivers, hire more. That came from a terminal manager I had back in Roadway, and it's true then as it is today. Um, Again, you never have enough people, even though you think you might. So jumping into it, starting off with kind of the hiring part of it. Um, you know what the important things that we found is message and presentation. And message and presentation, we need to catch their eye. We need to catch our audience. So we found our best luck with striking, you know, the ad or the advertisement, or whether it's radio, TV, whatever it is, needs to strike an emotional chord, and show, you know, that the position makes a difference. We highlight giving back to the community. We try and make it personal as much as we can to folks, or have them so they can personalize it. And by that, what I mean is that it affects their lives, how it affects their families. As far as the basic presentations, things we talk about, make sure it's eye-catching and that somehow it stands apart. It's a little bit different than everybody else. We always like humor and emotion, if it's at all possible. We try and do some humorous stuff. Although with a school district, it's a fine line. We had some ideas. You'll see some examples that we thought, and then we thought better of it. They were kind of fun. And then emotion, again, we found that highlighting our students, especially our younger students, the elementary age students, tends to strike a chord with folks. I think it's safe to say we all want to protect those kids, the smallest ones. We want to protect them, and that's a universal emotion, I think, and that's something that we can tap into. And then lastly, we really want to highlight our product, and our product is the kids. And so we try and feature kids in some shape or form in what we do, whether it's just riding the bus, boarding the bus, getting off the bus, things like that. And again, you have to manage that. Our district has, especially with the FERPA laws and things like that, the privacy laws, our district defaults to a parent agrees that they can share the likeness and image of the student. The district can do that unless they choose to opt out of that. And so during the registration process every year, there's a box they can check. So if you're not sure what your district's policy is on that, strongly recommend that you check into it. Personally, what we found is if we're not sure, we will consider them that they have not given their approval, and that we'll go through those first. We want to err on the side of caution. One of the big things is targeting our ads as far as who is our audience going to be. It's really important to know who our audience is going to be. When it's truck drivers, it's different. It's that's a career for most people, where we'll have primary breadwinners, so we'll have all ages. And for school bus drivers, it may be, we may have the same issue. When I was in San Diego, we had at least half, probably 2/3 of the workforce were primary breadwinners. They were younger on the age scale. Pardon me. So it was very important for them for a lifelong career, and so wages was a very high motivator for them to come to work for us. Working conditions were a high motivator. The benefits were good, but that wasn't generally the primary thing that they were looking for. When I came up to Beaverton, that kind of changed, and I'll kind of show you. So this is our demographic right now, as we stand right now, and this has been pretty much the same for the 10 years I've been here. As you can see, our single largest percentage of folks, 20% of our folks, are between 60 and 64. So here in Beaverton, what we found is that this tends to be a second or third career for most people. Beaverton is a suburb of Portland, Oregon. We're about 10 miles west of Portland, Oregon. We are the home, Beaverton's the home to Intel, major manufacturing plants here for Intel, 3 or 4 of them. It's also the world headquarters of Nike. We're in an area that's called the Silicon Forest. So it's one step below the Silicon Valley, but it's just as active up here. A lot of technology and that type of thing, and computer driven and support. So we get a lot of folks like that, and many of those folks, in years past, have done very well in that field and have retired early, or been able to leave their jobs, and they may still be young. They may be in their 40s or 50s, and they're looking for something else. They're too young for Social Security, so they're looking for benefits primarily. So I guess this is a long way of saying benefits is probably our single prime highest driver for our employees here, if you ask anybody. And as a school district, we an employee has to work 30 hours a week as a minimum to to qualify for benefits, for full benefits, which are in our district, they're fully paid depending on what plan that you get. And they're very good benefits. And so we make sure that all of our routes have a minimum 30-hour guarantee. Now, that was a decision that the district made about 10 years ago when I came on board, pardon me, to bring everybody up to guarantee the benefits. And that was a tremendous help for us in our hiring right away. But so those are, some important things to take a look at. But the message of this is between 50 and 60 years old, there is a significant portion of our employees. So and I will highlight that we still have employees that are even over 75 that are still working. In Oregon, once you turn 70, you have to get tested every year, and we still have folks that do that. So it can be it can be a great career for folks as a second or third one. So the next thing we're going to talk about a little bit is kind of the modes. How do we message? Different things that we do. And so the things that we've done here is the most obvious is our district website. And this is is probably everybody has a website, and it's the most common way of doing it. We make sure that we have a 260-day posting. It's a year-round posting. We always try and make sure it's up near the top as far as the level, the category of posting that school bus drivers is up near the top. We've tried, and we continue to use several other web-based services. Our Indeed and Craigslist are the two biggest ones that we use. This happens to be a Indeed ad. I couldn't get it to print. Normally, usually at the top, it's got a picture of a bus or something on it. But essentially, this is the kind of thing. So one tip that we found and that we do is a lot of districts tend to just regurgitate the job description on for their ad. And a job description, it reads like a job description, must do this, must do that. And what we've done is we tried to kind of make that more conversational, right? And we talked about kind of personalizing it. Do you have good communication skills, working with children of all ages? And that's why I talk about kind of personalizing it and trying to find your audience and trying to strike a chord. We highlight that there's no experience necessary. I would imagine almost everybody has an in-house training system that they're able to train their own folks and get them certified. And so we want to highlight that. We also we pay them. They get basically they're a 4-hour employee while they're in training. So again, that's something to highlight if your district does that. Another thing that we did, that especially during coming out of the pandemic, is we also reimbursed them upon completion, and they got their commercial license, the school bus certificate, and they passed, and they were a full-fledged bus driver. We went back and reimbursed them for their expenses. So we paid for upgrading to the CDL. We paid for the written test for the commercial license, and for the S endorsement, the B endorsement, and the school bus driver endorsement. And so in Oregon, it was about $200 for that. It's gone up here to about $280. And so we hire about 60 or 70 people a year. And so, it's $10,000-15,000 a year, but it's worth it because if that's gets more people in and to stay with us, then that's a cost that we'll take. That it makes it worthwhile. We've also thought about in a couple of different places. We've thought about some sort of agreement that if we're going to reimburse you, that you sign a promissory note or a pledge to stay with us for a year. That gets in a little gray area from a legal standpoint. If you can do that at your district, that's something else to think about. We have some, we've got I've got a couple of examples. I didn't put them in here, but if you're interested, you can send me an email and contact me, and I'll be happy to send you what we have if you think you can do that in your district. But that's always if you can lock somebody in for 12 months after you pay to reimburse them, that's a really good thing. Government posting boards, unemployment office, that kind of thing. Haven't had a lot of luck with that, but again, it's available, it's free. I've also gone out to colleges, junior colleges, community colleges, and four-year universities, and gotten them to post it up on their job board. Whether it's in the old days, it was an actual posting on a bulletin board. Now it's an electronic posting. We've done career fairs. We've gone out with a table for 2 or 3 hours and sat at a career fair. And again, looking for the part-time folks. I bet everybody has people, or maybe even yourself, that you started as a student, started as part-time as a student, and you graduated and you just wound up hanging around and it turned into a career. And everybody's got those stories, our district included. So that's kind of where it gets started. Transit buses and light rail, those are our favorites. That's something we got into a couple of years ago. We are in direct competition with our transit agency here in Oregon. It's called, in Portland area, it's called TriMet, extremely large public transit agency. And so we're in direct competition with them for drivers. And they pay better than we do. Our benefits package is better than theirs. Our hours are absolutely much better, and we like to think our riders are a lot better than their riders are. We don't have anybody pulling a knife on us or getting on the bus inebriated. So we try and highlight those when we make those comparisons with folks. Bus benches was a big one for us. We especially like the bus bench because it's sort of the gift that keeps giving. And as you'll see here in a few minutes, I have some slides and whatnot in some billing. So we pay for a bus bench, let's say for 4 weeks or for 8 weeks, and then we're done. And so the ad's on the bench. But if nobody comes behind you and rents that bench, then your ad continues to stay there. And so we have several benches that, we paid for maybe 8 weeks, and the ad actually stayed on for a year and a half because nobody else came behind us and wanted those locations or whatnot. And again, it's important that if you do bus benches, that you work with the ad agency or the transit company to pick your spots. I mean, we only picked, I think, 12 or 14, but they were key spots in our district, in our area, that were high vehicle traffic areas. And it worked out really well. So we really like the bus bench. And people get a kick out of seeing that. Billboards, we even did billboards. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to get an electronic billboard than it is the traditional big ad up there. Those spaces are really limited, and they're expensive, and the folks that get them tend to not give them up, the companies that get them. But with electronic billboards, we've seen them we have them on the highway, on the freeway, we've seen them, or on the highway, and then also on major thoroughfares in the city. And I think, it's a combination of, you can flash it up there for 10 seconds or even up to 30 seconds. And there's a price range there for how long you have it up there for each instance, and for how long over the course of time, days or weeks, that you run it as well. Again, kind of more at the expensive end, but especially coming out of the pandemic, we were desperate. We were 40 drivers short. And that meant we had 40 uncovered routes every day that we had staff driving. I'm fortunate that everybody here has a commercial license and a school bus driver certificate, with the exception of about 4 people. So of those 300 people, 296 of them can drive a bus if we have to. So unfortunately, we had to put our techs out driving routes. A lot of times coming out of the pandemic, I drove routes daily, my supervisors, my staff. So we were desperate, and so we did that. And then the last thing, and probably the least effective, is newspapers, mailers, church bulletins, that kind of thing. Again, mailers, I'm not a advertising guru, but I do remember, if you get a 3% response on a mailer, that's pretty darn good. If you send it out to, 25 or 50,000 people or households or whatever. So we did that. We did the mailers. We even did the newspapers when I first started. Not very effective at all, but we tried everything. Church bulletins, again, it's, you buy a small, quarter box or half box, and it stays in there for a month. It's not expensive, and it reaches more people than you would think it reaches. So I wanted to give you a flavor of the Indeed job posting. So this was just February, and I ran this. This is the number of clicks from February 1st to February 23rd. And again, I'm not an expert with clicks and all that stuff, but I do know that, we had anywhere from about a low of 35, 38 folks up to 100, 120 folks at least clicking on our ad, type of thing. So, if you choose to go that way, especially Indeed, they have a service you can pay for that'll help you manage that and do those types of things. But kind of gives you an idea. It's, people are always clicking on things, and it's just a good way to get out in front. So one of the other things, since we have 56 schools in our district, and so we took advantage of those. And this is what one of our banners, our 4-foot by 12-foot fence banner looks like. Our original banner was Transportation Department now hiring, call this number or go to this website. And so we got with our graphic designer and our communications department and came up with a better idea. And this is what it was. Again, we talk about being eye-catching, focusing on some of the things the kids. So we did that by the bus. One of the things we found is that folks, there's a tendency to put too much information on a banner. People are driving by it. They may see it for 2-3 seconds. And so it's got to be short. It's got to be directed, really highlighting the big things you want them to see, which was at this time, the rates have gone up. But when we put this one out, $23 to $30 per hour. So that usually catches our eye. The 0 cost health benefits for your full family, and the guaranteed hours. Those were the 3 big selling points for our district. And we wanted to highlight them, as you can see. Again, so we have some contrasting colors there, but it's still, our colors are black and gold, you can see pretty much, but it fits real well with the school bus. And then with the QR codes, that's where, you can really get into the details with the QR codes, and we make reference to that. So that's something to think about. I think, our banners, I've got about a dozen locations up. And I think a banner like that, it's vinyl, it's got davits in it, so you can tie it down to the fence or strap it to the fence. And I think something like that, the setup cost is the initial cost. That might be $1,500 for the setup, but once you have it set up to reproduce it, it might be $250, $300 maybe. So it's pretty economical, and if you continue to do it, it's easy. We've updated, for example, the earn the per hour. We've updated that a couple of times, and they've charged us a minimal amount just to change that number because the main setup is still the same. So the only pitfall to this is just putting the banner up, kind of post and forget. We found that, at least every year we need to move the banner, whether it's just move it up the fence or down the fence or to the left or to the right. You need to move the banner at least once a year. Twice a year is better, just because after a while it becomes part of the background and people don't see it anymore. So that was kind of a key thing that we found as well. So I have my training staff goes out during the summer, and literally they may only move it 10 feet, but it's just in a different place and it catches somebody's eye. This is an example of the mass mailing we did. And as you can see, I don't know if, there we go. I don't know if there we go. As you can see, we did it. We were going to try and do one side in English, the other side in Spanish. And again, in all languages, there's people up here. We have 106 different languages that are spoken in our district, but we can't do that, obviously. So we chose the biggest single language, which happens to be Spanish in our area. In your area, it might be a different language. So instead of doing one side in English, the other side in another language, we took the tack of just, kind of putting them together, as you can see, in English and then the foreign language underneath it. It was very effective. And again, we're focusing on what's important, right? The full-time positions, insurance, the paid holiday, sick leave, and personal time off. We found that was very important to highlight that as well. And the work schedule following a school calendar. We could say summer's off. It says the same thing, but when you say the work schedule follows a school calendar or something along those lines, tying it to kids, we always talk about, well, moms are great people to have, the school bus drivers. That's true, right? But that's how we can really make that connection a lot better and get that thought going. And again, we want to try and highlight kids, in our little drawing there, you can see the kids in the bus and trying to make it fun, that kind of thing. And again, the QR code, you can get in the details there. So this was the smaller version. What the smaller thing was what was on the flip side of this. And we made sure this was the glossy paper. It makes a difference. So if it gets wet, it's not going to run off. But we sent this out 2 different times. It wasn't that expensive. It was probably $500 or $600. Maybe, I want to say it was under 1,000. And I think we sent it to our district area, and then we also sent it to a couple of zip codes that were bordering our district, and that's how it was sent out. Sent out is by zip codes, because this goes to the U.S. Post Service, and you can even choose the zip codes. We didn't send it to every zip code in our area because we have a lot of rural areas or areas where there's not that many houses, and so we made sure we didn't send it there. So we focused on key zip codes that had high concentration of folks. Billboards. So this is a couple of examples of the billboards we went with. Again, highlighting the major points. And this time we chose to highlight our drivers and highlight the diversity of our drivers. So these are 3 of our drivers that we have. And as you can see, depending on where the billboard was at, we chose to go with the most used language. We have, and I'm sure you do too, we have certain areas that in our case, Spanish is spoken more prevalently than English is. And so we want to capitalize on that. And that's what we did in Spanish. Even though Spanish may be the primary language, most folks still speak English, right? And can speak English to in order, from a working environment, it can still function and work that way. So we chose to highlight that. So again, it gets the message very clear, but more importantly as well, it also pushes forward the fact that we're a diverse, welcoming organization. And while I know that may not be the most positive or in message thing right now, it's something that our school district believes in, and I would venture to say almost all school districts believe in, and so we want to capitalize on that. Some of the other things, we talked about some of the fun ideas we had. Here were some thoughts that we thought we'd try for our billboards. I'll let you take a moment to look at those. So what's an idea? Again, using the side of a bus and come up with a pithy phrase or something humorous. We kind of like that one. You'll never take your rook home with you. In fact, that would be illegal. We thought that was kind of funny. But then, as far as an ad campaign, probably not the best ad campaign. But again, the point here is maybe come up with something that works for you. And humor is always something, a key that people remember. They chuckle at. You need that one thing, to keep them in your mind to differentiate you from others. Remember, there's city buses out there driving around, hundreds of city buses drive around. The very front of it says, "We are hiring," and or $7,500 bonus, right? It's going to be on the bus. They, that says that and it flashes and people see that all the time. So that's, in our case, that's our single biggest one. I wanted to give you an idea of costs here. So this one was for, let's see, this was for park benches, I believe. Yeah, so this one was for the benches, and you can kind of see the prices on it. This was they run in 4-week increments, and so you can see we had about, let's see, a dozen, 3, 6, yeah, about a dozen, $6,300 for the month. So we spent, on the average, we spent probably about 12, and we budget for $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month. But, when we're hurting, we went as high as $50,000, a year for advertising. And, it's worth the cost. If you get people out of it, it's absolutely worth it. And the way I can justify it is, what's it cost for my supervisor or I to drive a school route? The loss of productivity and what that actual cost is. You make up that $6,300 pretty quick. Here is some of our park benches. This is what we went with. And again, we kind of broke it up. We didn't go with all the same, I'm sorry, bus benches, not park benches, bus benches. We didn't go with all the same message. We wanted to, because it was pretty much in the same area, we wanted people to see a different thing. So that's kind of what we went with. Again, paid training. You can see the one there where we, no experience, paid training, fees reimbursed, really try to hit on that, hit more of the finance part of it. And again, I really like the one on the right. It incorporates, the side of the school bus. There's nothing else like the side of the school bus, right? That you're going to remember that. So we thought that was really important. And then the one that I got the most response on, believe it or not, was that. So there's something just kind of sweet about putting an ad for a school bus driver on the back of the transit bus. There's just something sweet about that. I don't know what to say, but so we went with 2 different kinds. We went with the rear one on the left, which was less expensive. That's about 3 by 4, I think, or 2.5. Yeah, about 3 foot by 4 foot. Again, it's pretty much the same thing that was on the bus bench. And then we went with the side ad, which it's on the driver's side, which is the side you want. That's the side that's out, everybody sees for the most part. That one's what they call a king ad. It's about 14 feet long, I think, and about 3 feet tall. And that really gets the rise too. But we got a lot of talk on this. We got a lot of people when we, everybody we ask, we say, where did you hear about us from? And we follow that. And when this was out, amazingly enough, we got a lot of response from this, and we got a lot of chuckles, especially from my peers in other districts and a district staff. They thought that was kind of humorous that we were advertising on the school bus. So what was funny is that on the transit bus, on the back of this bus or on the side, it says, be a school bus driver. And literally on the front of this bus, where they put the route up on the electronic board, it says now hiring $7,500 bonus. So, they saw that and they kind of flipped out. But fortunately, the advertising department is separate than the operations department. So we didn't have anybody tearing our ads off. But those were something we did. Another thing that we did was radio. So we did a radio ad, and if hopefully you can hear this.
Upgrade your career with great pay, excellent benefits, and the best work hours around when you apply to be a bus driver for the Beaverton School District. The Beaverton School District needs drivers now. Apply at the Human Resources page at beavertonk12.or.us.
So that was also, we also did bought space in on television as well. It wasn't as expensive as you would have thought. We went with like between 2 spots between the 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock hour news hour is what we went with. And let me get back here. between the 4 and 5 o'clock hour, like the first half hour, there was one, and the second half hour, those are about 10-second spots, I think. And so again, just reaching out. We didn't really get a lot of feedback on that one. I thought I had the radio one on there, but the radio one is real similar to that. And we also did it in Spanish as well. But again, highlighting the school bus, the driver, the kids getting on, those are the important things and seeing it. That happens to be an electric bus, although we didn't say that, that is. And then going back to this is a copy of what it cost us for the bus, the ads on the transit buses. So again, this is for a 1 month period. They were discounted. It was $11,000, and you can see how many units over here. 17 buses for with the small one on the back, and then 15 the bench ads. These were for the bench ads. You can see what it cost us there. We even put a couple on the shelters, you know. So again, it gives you an idea of what kind of costs those are. And then we also did social media as well. So we have the district has a Facebook page. I'm sure you do too. And so we did some Facebook ads, which were that expensive. So this is what one of our social media ads was. This is what came up. So it was a 5-second pop-up. So again, something to think about. I think it was, I want to say, I remember $40 being in there. It might have been like $40 a month type of thing, because it was on our site, or or it would pop up if you did clicked on certain things. I'm not exactly sure how it worked, but it didn't just come up on the Beaverton site, but it also came up on other things. So okay, did that. Then we had the 12-second pop-up. Again, just another way. That was a little bit more expensive, but that was something to do too. Okay, so talk a little bit about that's basically the things that we did. So about the only thing we didn't do was hire an airplane and drag a streamer behind it. But if it would have hired people, I would have done it. So anyway, so that's some of the interesting ways that we got people in the door. We got a lot of people in the door in 2020, the 22-23 school year. We added 72 bus drivers to the seniority list. And then we've added between 55 and 65 in 23-24, and we're at 52 right now. Through today, we're at 52 drivers that we added. We lose about 20 people a year through retirement and just resignations and things like that. So we know we have to fill 20, and so we've been building things up. But again, especially in Oregon now, and I'm sure it's in other states too, there's long-term leave, the 12-week federal paid leave and things like that. So that really became prevalent in Oregon, and so we've lost a lot of people. We probably have right now. I probably have a dozen drivers that are out on either extended workers' compensation or personal family leave, something like that. And those are open routes and they need to be replaced. So even though we may not lose them, they're out for 3 months and again, with 275 drivers, we know we're going to have 27 drivers gone every single day. 10% is absenteeism every single day, just because dental appointments and people getting sick and things like that. And then when you add the extended leaves on top of it, we're talking 35 people a day that we have to replace. And so, we have to have the bodies to be able to do that. So as far as the important things after we get them in the door, is the interview and the hiring process. Don't overlook it. I think that's some of the critical things that we found is speed, right? That people don't just wallow. Once they apply, that, we get back to them, we respond to them. We either set them up for we either set them up for an interview or we say thanks, but no thanks, right? Sorry, we had better qualified applicants available, whatever, whatever legalese that you want to use. But again, if we, turn it around within a couple of days, I'd say four or 5 days at the very most. And then we want to make sure that the hiring process and the application process is easy to use and is accessible. So again, everything in our district is online now, point and click. And so make sure, go on there and apply and make sure yourself type of thing and make sure it's easy to use and work with your HR department. Salary placement is very important. Once, you go to make an offer, again, Oregon has a wage equity law now. So everybody that, has 3 years of qualified commercial driving experience essentially gets placed at the same thing. It doesn't matter if you drove a tractor trailer with triples, or if you drove a 26-foot delivery van that weighed 15,000 pounds. It is what it is. So your state, check with your legal department, your HR department, but make sure that you get them placed at the right spot, taking all their we try and give them as much credit as possible, right? We're not trying to nickel and dime them and get them in on step one. We want to get them in as high as we can, because we know that they're going to be happy, and if they're happy, they're going to stay with us, right? So you can't be penny wise and pound foolish type of thing. And then lastly, the onboarding process, again, that once they've gone through and you've made the decision to hire them, they've accepted the employment. They may have to give 2 weeks notice. Great, right? You get them in. But if they don't, we want to try and get them in as fast as possible, because chances are they've got other irons in the fire, and we don't want it pulled out from underneath us, especially if we're only giving them 30 hours a week. Somebody pull out from underneath us, they'll give them 40 hours a week. It may be 50 cents less an hour, and they'd rather go with that. So we want to get them in, get them in the door, and get them going, because once they get in, they start going, they start to feel the vibe, they see what the job is, especially once they get out and they start actually driving the bus and training in the bus with the trainer driving it. That's a really unique and fun thing to do, and we have them at that point, right? So those are all important things to remember about. And then lastly, kind of moving into the retention part, some of the main keys, how do we keep people? In-service training, all states, I'm sure, we have a minimum number of hours, in-service hours a driver has to have a year to maintain their certificate. In Oregon, it's 8 hours, an average of 8 hours, or 40 hours over 5 years. So other places, California, it was 10 hours a year. So, we make sure that we get more than that, because, we do it during, the midday break and things like that. So, anyway, so in-service training is important, in making it interesting and fun for it. Workplace culture, career paths, effective, career paths, those are important for folks. The culture, again, that's an entirely different presentation, I'm sure, but everybody wants to come to work. You want to come to work, you want to have a place that it's fun to come in, or maybe not ha fun, but at least it's pleasant to come in, those kinds of things. So it's important that you maintain that. Career paths are important. Again, even though in our case, most of our people just want to be drivers and get their hours, but there are some people that want to work their way up. When I was in San Diego, we had people that this was their first real job maybe, and they wanted to work their way up. So it's important to have paths, whether that's into the training department, into the safety department. How do you become a dispatcher? How do I get to be a router? Those kinds of things. So that's kinds of things we're talking about, right? And then effective leadership versus management. To me, that's really that should probably be at the top of the list. That's the key to all of this, to the retention and even to the hiring. You can be a good manager, but you may not be a good leader, right? And what is a good leader? There's, again, that's an entirely different thing, but to me is that, you're engaged, you're involved, you're talking to people. In my case, I like to get out and drive at least once or twice a month, part of a route, at least just so I can see what's going on, and see, I can't tell you how many changes we've made because I've gone out and driven a route. Things as small as, come back and parking in the yard, go to empty the trash in the nearest trash can, is, you know, at the other end of the yard. We've got 150 buses. It's a really big yard. So we just added trash cans. I can't believe how many people came up to me to thank me because we added more trash cans. And I would have never known that without going out to do it. So that's what I'm talking about, effective leadership. You're engaged, you're involved, and you're listening to people. So it's important to be a good manager, but it's, in my opinion, more important to be a good leader. And then feedback and compensation. Again, we want to listen to folks. If you have an exit interview process, absolutely want to, you know, go through that, or whether it's your human resources that does it, and get the, you know, get the information back on that. It's a good way. But we also do listening sessions once a quarter with myself and my supervisors, or we'll just, you know, come in and whoever wants to come and just listen and answer questions and talk about anything they want to talk about. So again, another way we've gotten some great ideas off of that and implemented many things based on those conversations. And again, compensation. And the reason I bring it up here again last is to say that you always have to be an advocate for your people, right? You have to be the first one in line, the loudest voice in the staff meetings with the deputy superintendents or the superintendent, you know, fighting to, you know, to get your folks, to get a good wage for your folks. And again, it's not all about wages, right? That's, you know, people that come to work for just for the money. We found study after study finds that that's not the primary, you know, people leave, it's just about money, but it doesn't hurt, right? It helps, it helps. One thing we can tell you is that we found if the compensation isn't there, we're not going to get the people in the door, or we're not going to be able to keep them. And then the last thing I'll just say is that there's nothing worse than, you know, going through all this hiring process that might take, you know, 6 weeks to do it from start to finish, going through a training that might take 8 weeks to go through and all the money involved, training them, and they work for you for 2 months and then they leave and go to the private contractor, or they leave and go to the transit agency. So if you kind of keep that in the back of your mind and try and ask yourself, how can I avoid that? What are the things I need to do to avoid that? I think you get a lot of your answers and it gives you some ideas. So with that, Steve, that kind of wraps everything up. Again, there's my information. That's my phone number. You can get to me. That's my email address. If you just go to the district website, it's just the beaverton.k12.or.us. And if you go on there, there's a, you know, our department is on there. Click on departments, transportation, and we've probably got a dozen pages on there. You can see all the different things we do and how we kind of present ourselves to the district and others. And yeah, with that, Steve, I'll throw it back to you. And you know, looks like we have time for Q&A or comments or whatever.
Yeah. Thank you, Craig. That was really exceptional information. There's a lot of moving parts to making sure you're doing all the right things to keep the quality bus drivers that you need. And I know you covered some things that some of our districts out there, maybe they're in a more rural area, don't have those opportunities to put ads on transit buses because it may not be out there, but certainly they have access to the internet. You can put up signs, you can put up signs around the schools. By the way, somebody asked if you wouldn't mind showing that banner again. I think it was the fence banner, the big one, if you maybe scroll back and show that. But one comment that I have is in your retention efforts, you talked a lot about culture and management. There you had it. Back up, I think, was that's the one somebody wanted to see, the
Okay.
fence banner.
There we go.
By the way, your graphics, there were quite a few comments about that are really outstanding, and the promotional ideas here I think are really exceptional. But I wanted to, you brought up culture, and you know, I think that's when you have that proper culture, whether that's, you know, how management operates, how you treat the people, in the end, I think culture is a big part of making sure that you're able to keep the drivers that you brought in. And I was glad to see you talk about culture there. I have one quick question. What percentage of the new bus drivers are you required to help them get a commercial license? Is that pretty much everyone? Or you find people that with already a CDL that want to drive a bus?
About probably 85% of the folks come in do not have a commercial license.
Right.
they may have driven a delivery truck, but it was not a GVW, a high enough GVW, and so they didn't meet.
Right.
So we just, and we assume even when we have folks come in with a commercial license, we start off pretty strict with them to see what they're doing. And then in some cases, they don't have the best of habits, or they don't kind of meet our standards. And so we'll just say, hey, look, we're going to start over again here.
So if somebody comes, you want to maybe take them on a road test, kind of see how they do, perhaps, huh?
Well, we start them off, we onboard them and all that. We have our introduction on board, and we start with our visual inspection, our pre-trip inspection, which is pretty detailed. And then once that's done, then, we get them into the bus, they start driving, and that's where we'll find out whether this is more of a tutorial or more of a, we're retraining. One of the things I did want to mention that I didn't hit on was that here in order to start training here, person has to have the commercial certificate. It's a commercial permit, a commercial driver's permit, CLP. So they'll do training for 4 hours a day, and then if they want, they can also come in and ride routes the second 4 hours if they want. A lot of people don't want to do that. When I was in San Diego, however, we didn't require that. We came in, and as they were working on their CDL and they were doing their classroom training, we had them, riding routes as an aid type of thing as well. So that's something else that you can do. You get them in, you get them employed, people are earning right away. I wanted to throw that out for folks as an idea too.
Great, awesome. One thing I do want to mention to everybody before we wrap this up today is I'm sure a lot of you out there, I know I saw quite a few of our current school customers, but we, since we've been talking about recruiting drivers, we do provide entry-level driver training is available online. And that is for Class B, for passenger, for students, so you can get all the endorsements too. I'm going to put a little poll question up here. If you have some interest in hearing how we could help you with entry-level driver training, you can answer yes or no here, and we'll be happy to reach out to you and mention that how we can do that. It is fully online. It can be done pretty efficiently, so we've been quite successful. And by the way, we are on FMCSA's registry as a provider, a training provider. So once the coursework has been completed online, we will transmit that automatically to FMCSA for you. So I just want to throw that out there. I don't see any other questions coming in right now, Craig. So let me just say this. We very much appreciate your insight and the techniques that you're using there at Beaverton to keep your fleet full. And congratulations on the electric buses too, by the way. That's something that I think a lot of school districts are striving to take part in. And it seems like you're well underway to making that conversion. So congratulations on that. And congratulations for Transportation Director of the Year. So we do appreciate that. But having said that, Craig, we'll thank you. We're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat here. So we appreciate everything you told us. And for those of you that attended, thank you for joining us today. And we hope you join us for another webinar in the future. Craig, thank you, sir. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very
Be
much.
safe.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.